everyone, welcome back to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6. I'm Amanda, and tonight we're going to be talking about illness and religion and spirituality. We've all been on like this revolving door of quarantines and lockdowns and losing people close to us, people that are, in the public eye that we know, just a bunch going on, people getting sick and getting better, and people that you thought would get better that didn't. And it's just this whole thing. So whenever someone is faced with like a life event, normally they call on their faith. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But first, let me key you in on a couple of things. Oh, I forgot the date for the first Mercury retrograde. Darn it. Okay, here we go. So first Mercury retrograde of the new year, of course, is going to start on January 14th. It is going to go to February 3rd. So keep in mind that during that time, don't start anything new. Not a good time to buy a car, buy a house, start a new relationship. Just take care of the things that are already in motion and simmering and bring those to an end, a proper end. The full moon is going to be on January 17th. It is the wolf moon, or cold moon or spirit moon. And of course, for obvious reasons, that's why it's called. And then the new moon is going to be on February 1st, which is Chinese New Year. That's my lunar birthday, the beginning of my celebrating my birthday season. And then full moon, the next full moon after that will be on February 16th, which will be the snow moon, which we may actually get some snow the way the weather is being really weird. I don't know what's going on here. So religion is one of those things. Of course, if something happens, you're in the hospital, they ask you, do you want to talk to your pastor, or do you want them to send someone up or something like that? They ask of the family if they want to talk to anyone. Whenever I go to work with someone who is in the hospital, or even if they're not in the hospital, if they're just experiencing an illness, I always tell them, healing doesn't work if you don't believe it's going to work and you don't believe there's a higher power out there that can heal you. So I don't care what your religion is, pray to it, whatever you do, believe in it, whatever. Put your faith there and that everything is going to get better. Now, eventually I'm going to have a conversation on here with someone who is atheist, because I'm not exactly sure what they turn to in times like this. So sorry with this one. If you're atheist, I understand. I just don't know what the path is. So I will bring someone on to talk about that one evening. But tonight we're going to talk about those who do have some kind of religious or spiritual place to pull from. So they tell us that religion basically serves three functions or three things. The first one is to give a framework to make things make sense that you otherwise would not understand. And the unfortunate thing about that is it doesn't always make sense in a good way. Like sometimes it's like, okay, well, it's a punishment for something, or it is a lesson in something, or it's to make you better, or, trial by fire, or you needed to make this sacrifice to get ahead, or something like that. And so that's not always a great reason for religion, but it does give that, and some people need that. The second one is it gives a way for you to cope with being sick or suffering, or your mortality or something like that, especially if there's a belief that there is something on the other side, whether it is heaven or nirvana or another life or whatever. It gives something to look forward to, so that even if you don't heal, there is something on the other side of this. It's not just over. And then the third thing is that it gives hope. hope that nothing bad is going to happen, that your higher power, whoever that may be, has your back and will help you get better. So those are the main things that it does. Well, religion, or at least mainstream religion, has seen a serious decrease in new members and those following over like the past 50 years. But that doesn't mean that people have stopped worshiping. People have gone to other religious and spiritual practices. People have gone to ancestor worship and energy practices and just different things that sit better with them or make more sense to them. And this happens a lot with people who have chronic health conditions where mainstream religion no longer is making their situation make sense. They can no longer turn to that for an answer as to what is happening to them and why it's happening to them. So, of course, they start to seek other things. And we see this not only with religion, we see it where people turn away from one type of medicine for another, or one type of healing practice for another. Because when people want to feel better and things aren't working, you, of course, turn to other things. I am of the personal belief that a good combination is what works. Western medicine mixed with Eastern medicine, energy healing and faith, and actual, medical practices, and combining these things to me seems to be the best option and yielding the best results. I have no problem with going into hospitals and doing Reiki right there in the hospital when the person's in the hospital bed. And you know what? I have not had a nurse or doctor tell me no, or, you can't do this here or whatever. In fact, I've had nurses say, what is it we can do to help? Can we move anything? Do you need us to do anything? Do we need to do anything with the patient to help out with this? What can we do? So I find that most medical facilities are really embracing alternative medicine and alternative healing beliefs and that type of thing, to the point where everyone just wants the individual to feel well and get better. And so how that comes to be does not matter. There was one young lady that I was working with, and she was a child. She was middle school, and she was diagnosed with stage 3 or 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma. She had a mass, a nice size mass, and they were going to start a series of treatments, and her mother reached out to me, and I said, I will come down. I will, do what I can. And so I did. And I helped doing distance Reiki and all of that. And when they got ready to do scans so that they could do the targeted treatments, it had shrunk to the size of a pea. And so the doctors was like, we don't know what happened. And everyone has all these questions and all that. And her mom called me, and I said, yes, I did Reiki. Reiki helps. I'm sure some of what the doctors did helped as well. But the overall belief is your faith. Like I told y'all when you were there, whoever you pray to them and ask for what it is you need and what it is you want. And she's doing great now. She's in high school. She's thriving, living her best, teenage life. But my belief is that it was a combination of these things. Yes, the Reiki was the catalyst, in my opinion, for healing. But their faith directed it to the correct place for it to heal. And the great nurses and physicians at Children's who allow these things to happen and allow other people to come in and do these types of healings, they just want these kids to feel better. I think is also a great factor. All right, we need to take a quick break. We will be right back. You're listening to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6.
So tired, telling you about God and she's my witch.
Hey everyone, welcome back to What on BFAM 109.6. That segment was brought to us by Brandy's Hair Braiding Lounge. Please check out some of her new styles. I have not decided what I'm going to do next. I know next week I am checking out a new salon. I will tell you guys what I think about it. Because my old, the person who would straighten my hair has retired, and it is an ordeal. When you have curly hair, it's an ordeal. So I will let you guys know, and maybe we'll have a new sponsor. Who knows? But yes, check out all of Brandy's things, all of her new styles. I know she has a couple of deals going on, so check that out. All right. So, talking about healing and how kind of a combination approach works. So how does faith help, right? Other than what is it good for? Like, what are the, those three main purposes of it? How does it help, or how can you use it to help? So, meditation. Let's take meditation. And to me, meditation is similar to prayer. Yes, you're kind of in this state of clear-headedness and everything, but this is the time when you can focus on something, meditate, put your energy towards something. And so it's kind of to me, kind of the same as prayer. And honestly, I spend more time in meditation than I ever did in prayer, so to say, when I was a practicing Christian. But not only does it help, focus and everything, it helps just mental clarity and well-being as well. So especially right now when we're like in our houses a lot, for reasons beyond our control, it gives us kind of an internal escape from your surroundings, from your everyday, I guess, just becomes like the same thing over and over again. I know there's a word for that I can't think of right now. And you need that break. So meditation is a great way to do that. They have guided meditations. They have all kinds of things you can log into YouTube and do. I used to do those when I was at work for the kids, just to get them out of whatever had happened at home that morning. Parents yelling, fighting, dog won't do what it's supposed to. Monotonous. Thank you, David. Thank you. For like all those things that happen to them in the mornings before they get to school, and then we expect them to sit down in their seats and be productive. And it's like, nope, let's kind of reset their brains just a little bit and get there. And luckily I worked, when I was working with children instead of adults, I worked at an IB school, so this was okay. I know in a regular public school this may not be so acceptable, but in this school it was. But having those relaxation, just miniature escapes help a lot. They mention that in the Islamic religion and the Catholic practices, their praying methodology, like the way they do it, can invoke kind of a meditative response as well. So it's not just, spiritual practice that get you there. There are some religious practices that get you there as well. Religion, and sometimes faith and spirituality, and I'll explain that in a minute, gives you a sense of camaraderie. You have your group that you worship with, for those who go to church or go to temple or go to mosque or go to drum circle or whatever, prayer meeting or whatever it is you do. But it brings you together with other people who have the same faith and same belief system that you have. And there's power in numbers, right? So there's that. And so I know some of the temples, they'll do like full moon celebrations. If you're some outside of the Christian, or the three major religions. They have all kinds of reasons for the community to come together. Some of the like Hindu temples I know have like days for different deities, and so people will come together to worship different things there. I know at the Buddhist temple that I go to, coming up around the Chinese New Year, in that new moon celebration, there will be a service held there where everyone comes together. Not so much of the food and fun times that it was before COVID for obvious reasons, but still just coming together and worship together. And one of the things I say about going to the Buddhist temple and doing meditation there is that you're quiet, no one's talking, but there's 40 or 50 of you. So you have this togetherness. You're not alone, you're with other people, you feel the warmth, but there's none of the noise and none of the clatter, and your brain is clear and you're able to focus. And so you can have togetherness even if there isn't conversation going on. And I guess having that sense of community connection in itself keeps people well, keeps people healed. I know a lot of people since COVID have taken to attending church ceremony via Zoom. So they're still meeting and getting together via Zoom, still having Sunday school via Zoom. So having another, again, outside connection, because no offense, if you're stuck in quarantine or you're, lockdown happens wherever you are, whatever the case may be, even if you live with someone, eventually you're going to get sick of seeing and talking to that same person over and over and over and over again. Okay. Even if it is your spouse, eventually you're going to be like, please go find another room. Just go sit somewhere else. Somebody go for a walk, something. So this gives you some outside connections. For some people, religion and spirituality give them a sense of understanding. And I will say, I've had more of a sense of understanding being pagan and working on my spirituality practices, more so than I ever had as a practicing Christian. Honestly, with the more I read, the more questions I had when practicing Christianity. And so even now I'll tell my students, especially if you come from a background where there is a book or a manual or something that's supposed to be the law, the way it works, I always tell them, kind of toss that out of your brain and stop thinking about the book. And even if you, and this doesn't mean change religion, stay Christian, that's fine. Stay whatever religion you are. But stop listening to the book and start listening to your higher power. Start listening to this God or goddess that you believe in, because you will get more clarity by just stopping and listening than you will ever get from a book, especially a book that, in like the case of the Bible, has been translated over and over again, and things just get lost in translation. And something that reminds me of how much things get lost in translation is when you watch something on television and you're listening to the words and you're reading the subtitles. And I keep that on because I have some hearing loss. So I need to be able to read what is being said as well as see it so that my brain catches it quicker. Because if not, I'm constantly having to hit rewind. What did they say? Huh? What was that? Like constantly. But you'll see they're speaking and the translation is similar, but it is not the same words. It is not. And sometimes it even slightly changes the meaning, the way they say it versus the way it was written. So if you keep that in mind when you're reading these religious texts, that things like that happen, and they happen a lot. And read for the message more so than the words themselves. It will be easier to understand. You'll get more clarity on it. The other thing is being able to help others. One big part of being a community, whether it's a religious community or a spiritual community, or just a community of like-minded people, is the idea that you can help others. We all know that when before COVID, if you attended like a Christian church or something like this, David, you can tell me if they have this in Catholic churches, because I have no earthly idea. We always had the list for the sick and shut in. And so people would give money, and the ladies of the church would take this money and give things to people who were sick, maybe help them pay a bill, fix meals, that type of thing. And so that sense of being able to help people in your community helps as well. Now, here's the one thing I hate about that. David told me, is that in Catholic churches as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. I figured it was, but I wasn't sure. The one thing that kind of gets on me with it is with some people, it's like, okay, well, you can help thy neighbor as long as thy neighbor is like you. So help them, but if they're a witch, nope, don't help them. Or help them, but if they're a different race, don't help them. Or help them, but if they have a different sexuality or practice than you do, then don't help them. Help your neighbor. Be a nice person. Be a good person. I mean, unless there's an absolute jerk and are making your life a living hell, help your neighbor. I would say the one thing that has that decline that I was talking about earlier in mainstream religion is that people stop feeling welcome for whatever reason. Either they were extremely judgmental, or they were sexist, or they were against LGBTQ, or whatever the case may be. And in some cases, it's just that, and unfortunately, this happens in all communities, not just mainstream religion. In fact, we've had some conversations about religious leaders across the board, or religious rock stars across the board, where they are doing some really tasteless and disgraceful things, and sometimes illegal things, and are being protected by those around them, their followers, their groupies, whatever the case, whatever you want to call them. And people who grow up in these situations and see this tend to leave that church or that group or that following. Like they're like, this is wrong, and no one is saying anything, so I'm out. And so this, a lot of times, unfortunately, not only turns them against that particular group, it also turns them against that religion or religion in general. So those that are more welcoming and more inclusive tend to be the groups in religious sects and spiritual practices that are gaining traction and gaining more people. And of course, who doesn't want to feel welcomed? Who doesn't want to feel loved? Who doesn't want to feel like they are important and special and wanted and embraced, right? Especially within a community that they spend a lot of time in. But then there are people who choose to practice on their own. We have a lot of solitary practitioners. I tend to practice solitary and then come together in groups with others that may not be on the same path as me. In fact, most of the people I gather with are not on the same path as me, but we all are respectful of each other's paths and can talk to each other about each other's paths and beliefs and thought processes and all that, and may not agree with them, but have a clarity of understanding about where the other person is coming from. And that makes you feel safe, and that makes you feel secure. And of course, those are the kind of people you want to be with and want to worship with. But if you're by yourself and you practice by yourself, meditation can be done by yourself. If you're Catholic, saying your rosary can be done by yourself. Observing religious days and religious holidays and Sabbaths can be done by yourself. These are not things that require a group. But having that group as a backup, if something goes wrong, someone that you can say, hey, I need an ear, or I need an opinion, or I just need you to pray for me, or whatever the case may be. And I know you guys, I don't know if I've worn that shirt on this show, but if you've seen me out in public, you've probably seen me wearing the shirt from the John Chris comedian, I'm not praying for that. So, of course, these people that you're asking to pray for you or send out prayers probably want to know what it is they're praying for. And if they're praying that you hit the lottery, no, they probably don't want to put their energy into that. If they are, praying, that something, they probably don't want that something semi, bad or crazy or whatever happens. They don't want to put their energy into that. But in a closer, smaller, tight-knit community, then you're able to express what is going on, and someone can actually offer you true thoughts and prayers toward your specific situation. One of the things I always ask when people come to me, and a lot of people that come to me are solitary practitioners, and they're just like, I need some extra good energy sent my way or whatever. And I always ask them, well, what is the nature of the issue I'm praying for? Where is my energy going, and how can I properly send it? And for me in my practice, that matters. For some people, it doesn't. But keep in mind that some people aren't actually praying for you. Yep, they thought and prayed about you in that second that you thought about it, and they thought nothing else about it later. So keep that kind of thing in mind. So there's a way to do this in all kinds of things. And for those who don't feel good with organized religion, or you don't do spirituality, and I'm thinking this may fall maybe where some of our atheists would probably fall. I will, like I said, I'm gonna get someone on here and ask these questions. But being outside, being able to go outside and sit in nature. I did that a lot as a kid. That was like my favorite thing to do, was to sit and commune with nature. Go to an art gallery, listen to specific kinds of music, maybe go to the opera, something like that. Listen to a poem, go to a science museum, listen to a history speech, something like that. That may provide that mental clarity or break that they need, that in their own way is kind of spiritual for them. I mean, for some, I've listened to music that was a whole spiritual experience. I've seen art that lifted me in the same way that spirituality does. So that's not to say that people are worshiping these things. It's just to say that it lifts their spirits to that point, to that level, to provide them the same benefits, both physically and mentally and emotionally, as religion would. So when someone says, oh, you know what, I'm going to do one of those kind of practices, don't knock them. This may be what their soul needs. And so if you are the kind of person who wants to be involved in your community, of course, reach out, get involved, see what you can do. I know, COVID. I'm so over it, y'all, at this point. And for those who might be wondering, COVID is now making its rounds through my particular house for the third time. I'm fine, but it has been a constant revolving door between that and the flu. So as you can see, a lot of times I'm airing from home. And so the reason for that is, of course, that I want to make sure that I'm safe and staying well, because I do have some respiratory things, but I also want to make sure my producer is safe. And if I have guests, to keep them safe. And I hope everyone else is doing and making those same conscious decisions as they move about. But I understand everyone's situation is different. All right. So we need to take a really, really quick break. We will be right back. You're listening to BFAM which is on BFAM 109.6.
Your producer loves you for that.
Say that again.
Honey, when you're sitting on the throne, no one calls
Sorry,
you
David, I
honey.
forgot that song.
When you're sitting on a throne, beware the patient woman, 'cause this much I know, no one calls you honey. When you're sitting.
I thought about it earlier and I forgot to send you the new songs. I'm sorry. All right. So we've talked about how it can benefit and all that type of
Big
thing.
Chief. Big Chief.
Oh, sorry. This last segment was brought to us by Big Cheese Botanica, where you can get all of your herbs and all that kind of thing. That brings me to something I need to, because I've been getting calls about orders and that type of thing. As of 2022, I have made the conscious decision, because of just timing and as fairness to my clients, that I personally only provide goods to my clients and students. So for those who were simply buying things from me, stock, but were not actually clients or students of mine, please know that I am passing you along to Big Cheese Botanica. She will take care of you. She has everything you need. In fact, I'm going to transition to getting a lot of things from her, because it's just easier to let someone else handle that side of it, especially with the way shipping and things being in stock and being out of stock and all that. I just don't have the time and energy to put into that. And that is time and energy that I could be giving more of, and opening up more slots for my clients and my students who deserve that time, rather than spending an hour or two trying to track down product, because this place is out and that place is out and that place back stock and everything. So please bear with me as we make that transition. I promise you guys will not be disappointed with Big Chiefs Botanica. It's just, for me, a more logical decision for my time, and me being a one person, shop here, and I still have children and so on. So just needed to put that out there, because I know at the beginning of the year, I get a lot of those calls, and I've been filtering them there. So for anyone who's hearing this, yes, that is exactly the answer I'm going to give you. If you call me still, sorry. Love you though. As far as clients though, that has now opened up more room for people, so that I don't have to put you guys off so far as I've been having to do, because now I'm not having to juggle all those kind of things. So we've talked about, of course, the good parts of this, but what about the negative parts of this, right? We have people who don't believe in using any kind of medical care, medical intervention, or anything like that, because their faith will protect them. And this is not one of those things where, oh, she's talking about the Christians. Nope. Actually, yeah, there are some of them, but nope. This transcends one specific religion. It does. I even had someone say, oh, well, you're not going to get vaccinated, are you? You're protected by your gods. You will be fine. And I'm thinking, yeah, but I'm also going to get this vaccine and do these other things so that I can stay well, because I've had COVID at the beginning and I don't want it again. And luckily, by combining Eastern medicine with Western medicine and getting the vaccine, so far I have only had it the one time at the very beginning, knock on wood. And I've had to take care of now 1, 2, 3, about 6 people who have had COVID. So it's not like I am just avoiding it altogether. I'm just taking all of the precautions and doing all of the things. And so far that is working. And I understand this is a way of life. This is a thought process for some people. This is a belief system for some people. And if it is your belief system, then that's fine. I cannot necessarily say you are right or wrong. I have my opinion, but my opinion does not matter in the terms of your faith, because it's your faith, not mine. And I believe that if people are steadfast in what they believe in, then someone else's thoughts or opinions on the matter will not shake that faith. So, but I will say that I do not understand when there is something that there is a cure for, or a treatment for, or something that is 100% preventable the death part of it is preventable. It's preventable. That someone does not do whatever it is possible to make themselves well or healthy again. I don't quite understand that. I probably never will. And that's okay. I will say, if you are one of those people and you don't mind coming on to talk to us, I would absolutely love to have that conversation. Even if we had that conversation and you wanted to keep your camera off, I would be willing to do that. David, that's an option, right? Because keep in mind, while you guys who tune into Facebook can
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
see,
ma'am, it is.
we are first and foremost a radio show airing all over the world. So the most of our listeners don't actually see our faces. So if you were, and David said, yes, that's a possibility. That is
so what it would look like, it would look just like this.
Okay.
Keep talking.
So awesome. So you could come
I would
on
be just
and
like
no one
this, where you can hear me. Your name is right here. You can hear me.
Love it. Love it. So see, you have that option, and not just this. If at any time someone wants to come on and talk about something that is near and dear to them, and they think they have a really good insight on it, and do not want their face shown, I am more than willing to make that happen, because it is more important to me that the point of view and the information gets out than your face being seen or easily recognizable, or someone being easily able to call this up again at some other point, or your job being in danger, or your family, or whatever. I heard of custody cases where things are brought back, anything like that. So if you're ever willing to do something like that and you don't want to be identified, we can do that. We can change your name. We can do whatever. But yes, I would like some clarity on that thought process and on that belief system. Because yes, I don't understand it, but it is a thing. And I never understood it. Like, I understood it as being a decision for an adult to make for themselves. I, no longer wanting to seek treatment, or not wanting to seek treatment in general. I'll be honest, there are some things where I've said, if it happened to me and this was the diagnosis or whatever the case may be, yes, I would do up to a certain point, but after that, I would just live my best life until. So, to a certain extent, I sort of understand. I never understand it, though, when it is one of those things, like I said, that is 100% curable, preventable, so on and so forth. Some people believe that taking it out of the hand of religion, because religion is one of these things where it's kind of out of your control, that faith. Well, if it is the will of, then everything will be fine. And so it takes it out of the control of the person, whereas being able to say, well, I'm just not going to do this, puts it completely back in the control of the person. I don't know. But this is a popular thing. They actually said that according to a poll, 55% of Americans with religious faith believe to some extent that their higher power will protect them from being infected by our current pandemic. It's like, okay. And I think we've talked about this. If God is this all benevolent person, then they definitely cannot be all knowing, because if they're all knowing, then they wouldn't allow these things to happen unless they're not completely benevolent. So you kind of get in this jump around of how exactly does that work, if they're able to do whatever. I don't know. That's a conversation for an entirely different show. One we will talk about in the future. And let me make note of that. I'll put that one up soon, but it is definitely a conversation we need to have on a whole nother hour, and that would take more than a couple of hours to talk about. But anyway, there are also people who believe that things like illness and natural disasters and pandemics and things like that are sent to as punishment. That the world is wicked, or a person is wicked, or something, and therefore this is not random. It is happening directly to this person because they deserve it in some spiritual, cosmic set of circumstances. And most of those people believe that then, since that is the case, the only way for this to get better, or the person to get well, or whatever the case may be, is for them to then come back to religion, or give some kind of penance, or admit their sins, or whatever the case may be. So that's a whole nother. Yes, I do believe that there are things that happen to people because they are reaping what they've sowed. But I also know people out there who are horrible people and do horrible things to people all the time, and nothing ever happens to them. Ever. So it's not that easy. I also know there are people out there who wouldn't hurt a fly, that wind up with cancer or something like that, or walk out and get hit by a bus, or some tragic car accident. So the logic behind that reasoning just does not pan out in the grand scheme of things. At no point will I ever believe there is something that a child has done that is so horrible that they should die some horrific death. Yes, I believe everything happens for a reason, but sometimes the reason is just senseless. Sometimes it just doesn't compute. So yeah, there's that. So the real problem with this is not so much if other people believe it, but it's if the person who is sick or ill or suffering believes that what has happened to them is a punishment. Because if they believe that it is a punishment, then they believe that they deserve it, and may lack the will or the want or the faith to want to get past it, to want to get well. And I do believe that there's a such thing as making up your mind to be sick, or making up your mind to die. Now, I'm not saying that all illnesses are in people's heads. Nope, it's not what I'm saying. Yes, some things are psychosomatic. They are. But I do think when people get sick, that they have to have a will to want to get better. They have to want their bodies to get better, because then they're going to eat the things and take the things and drink the things and do all the things they need to do to help their body have what it needs to get better. But if they believe that it is a punishment and they somehow way deserve it, then they may not do those things. They may not take care of themselves in the right manner. They may just give up and start just, behaving in some manner that is not beneficial to them getting well. And that does not help them get healthy. It does not help them get better. And if they have people around them, close to them, who care about them, it makes it virtually impossible for that person to actually care for them and take care of them in the manner that someone should. And we all know that being a caregiver, if you've ever been a caregiver, being a caregiver is hard. And that's another part of this whole faith and illness thing, where caregivers definitely need that community. They definitely need that sense of faith and something to believe in, because unfortunately, when people don't feel well, they don't necessarily act at their best. And so they tend to strike out at those closest to them, which is normally the caregivers. And it makes it really, really hard. So having that belief, and that's why a lot of, especially when people are on hospice care and that kind of thing, they will send out a priest or a reverend or someone for you to talk to from your faith or whatever, so that you have someone to talk these things through. And they will offer therapy and group counseling and that kind of thing for caregivers as well, because those kind of things are needed for that person to keep themselves healthy as well, because caregiver burnout is a real thing. It's a real problem. And then you have those who think that, well, kind of to prove that their faith is real, or to prove that their God or goddess or whatever is real, that they won't seek help. They're going to wait for this entity to intervene, the spiritual being to intervene. And that's going to be their proof that this actually exists and that they are right in their convictions. And so all of those can be kind of dangerous schools of thought, because depending on how deep down that rabbit hole someone decides to go. We saw this in the 80s where, you know, people were dying from AIDS. And a lot of people said, oh, well, it's God's punishment. That if they weren't like that, that would not have happened. That was just, you know, because they're evil, wicked people. And we know that's not true. But that took a long time because of that belief system that, oh, well, it's only happening to them and it's only because they're bad people, so we're okay. It took a while for the medical community to truly take it seriously and start trying to do something about it. Because of that. And, you know, despite all the things we say about being, you know, separation of church and state, and, you know, not having faith in our medicine, and that, you know, well, faith being the basis of our medicine, or whatever the case may be, religion being the base of our medicine. It's a strong part of that, because no matter someone's career, their religion and religious practices are still a very, very strong part of who they are, and their moral standards and points of view, and how they do things. And I do believe that, yes, you should have that, but it should not impact your work. But that's a really hard thing to do. That is one of those biases that exists whether we like it or not. And please keep in mind that religion and spirituality, and we've talked about this, they are not the same thing. And so religion, of course, follows those kind of rules set by, you know, their church, their beliefs, whatever the case may be. Whereas spirituality, just that belief that there's something higher out there, there's something more powerful than us out there, and that something, sorry guys, and that something is enough to connect us to the universe and to heal us and that type of thing. So these, having faith that you're going to heal just by the nature of how the universe works, versus having faith that you're going to heal because a deity or entity has decided that it is what should be and therefore shall be, are two different places that people are coming from, and makes the way they practice and pray and believe things are going to happen completely different. But on the same note, your whatever your beliefs are, I'm sorry, they should be respected. So keep in mind that when you are checked into the hospital, you can make your religious preferences known. I know that a lot of times, especially here in Atlanta, when you check in, that's one of the questions they ask you when you're at the hospital is, what is your religious affiliation? And, you know, would you like us to call someone if something happens or something like that? So you can make those kind of things known. That way, if at any point you can't verbalize that, that information is already there. And that's important in a time right now where before family members could come in with you and be there with you, but now in the time of COVID, unless you need the person to translate for you, help you in some kind of way, that you're not allowed in the hospital, and you're definitely not allowed to stay overnight and be there. They're not allowed to be there and be your voice. So you want to make sure all these things are in writing for the staff to know. All right, we need to take a quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6. Hey everyone, welcome back to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6. Hey, you need to refill that magical closet of yours? Check out Opal Sanctum and Emporium for any tools, whatnots you might need, a little bit of decor to make your house a little bit more festive. We have, of course, Chinese New Year coming up. We have Imbolc coming up, and they are exactly one day apart. So go ahead and get shopping on that so you have those things ready to go. And so to kind of I'll start kind of wrapping this up because, of course, we're in our final 10 minutes. This is something we could talk about forever, but hospitals, like I said, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, normally are respectful of these kind of things. They are now in the understanding that everyone isn't of the same practice, isn't of the same belief system, and that some rights and that kind of thing need to be respected and distributed as a part of the person's healing. So while spiritual practices can be like following virtues or just, some kind of cleansing ritual you do or healing ritual you do, versus religion where it's prayer and that type of thing. But all of these should be respected. Unless you want to come into a hospital room, and mind you, we still have the whole COVID restrictions. So you have to check with every facility about what their rules are about clergy coming in or spiritual leaders coming in to be with you for whatever reason. You still have to follow those rules. But as long as you're not coming in to like burn sage in the hospital or light open flames, for the most part, you can practice within the hospital, as long don't make any sacrifices or anything like that in the hospital. Maybe no live, animals or anything that wouldn't be sanitary or might set off alarms or cause the smoke alarm and fire suppression system to activate. And keep in mind, there's oxygen in the hospital. We don't want any explosions. But I have never been told so far that I could not do something. I even carry, you can take your smudge sticks and soak them in like an alcohol base or whatever and turn them into like a spray that you can take with you. So there's ways you can still do these practices and not cause a stir at the hospital. Well, it may cause a little bit of a stir, but what do you care? Keep in mind that if you are one of the people who work in facilities or something like that, I'm sure you know by now that people's faith in things help them get better. If there is a way, if there's something they want to do for a spiritual reason or a faith-based reason, and you can make it happen for them or you can assist them with it, and it's not breaking any rules, going to get you in any trouble or anything like that, help them. Be their advocate in that way. I promise you it makes a world of difference, especially if they believe that the people who are helping them care about them and are on the same page of wanting them to get well and allowing them to practice freely. That goes a long way because everyone wants to be heard and feel like their feelings and practices are valid. You may not agree with it, you may not understand it, but as long as it's not hurting your career or anything, it costs you absolutely nothing to be of assistance, and it may be just the boost they need to get them over the hump and get them home safe and healthy. I know one of the things that used to be popular was, someone's sick, bring the kids and, make plans for the future and all this kind of stuff. But with current conditions and not being able to do that kind of thing, something like this could be just that little thing that's needed that can make the world of difference. I will, of course, bring attention to some of the crossovers when we get to illness and religion. And some of this, a lot of it has to do with mental illness, unfortunately. I have seen a lot of people who were thought to be mentally ill that really were just seeing spirits and that type of thing. And then I've seen people who thought they were seeing spirits who were mentally ill. So there's a very fine line, and everything should be taken into account to figure it out. And whether people really realize it or not, magic, the whole spiritual world and everything, it all can be proved in certain ways. You have a way, there are ways of figuring out what's what and how. If you have an open mind and know the right questions to ask. You may have some more extreme religious people like, oh, they're sick, well, they need an exorcism. No, not necessarily. Hold up, let's stop and rethink this. I've seen people who think they're going to, heal sepsis with herbs. Nope. Nope. Hold on. Let's get some actual antibiotics going on here. We can deal with the herbs later. Not that the herbs wouldn't help, but you have no way of calculating the measurements properly. I've known people who, religious leaders, spiritual leaders, who say, oh, I can heal you of blah, 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 blah. But you're going to have to pay me $500,000 or $1,000 or $5,000. I mean, I've seen it get ridiculous. I have never charged for going to the hospital to do a Reiki treatment for someone or healing them in those kind of situations. Yes, I charge for Reiki outside of that. But in a situation where someone's life is literally on the line, there's no price on that. There's no price tag on that. So I never charge for that. That is something I do out of the goodness of my heart because I know it is something that needs to be done. And people are like, well, how are you going to pay your bills? Yeah, I say the same thing. I still got to keep the lights on. Georgia Power doesn't take, spiritual blessings as payment. But I always find that when I do those kind of things, it comes back to me in another way that is far greater than anything else I could have imagined. So the universe works those things out. That's a whole nother show as well of people taking advantage of people in those vulnerable type of situations. That's a whole nother show. So yeah, we'll come back to that another time. And keep in mind of people who are just extreme in their thought processes and beware of those kind of things. Join this thing or whatever, and you'll be healed and protected. I remember when I was a kid, the television evangelist mailing out holy water and blessed handkerchiefs and just all kinds of things. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Really? Like as a child, I was like, seriously? Okay. They're not mailing that out to 10,000 people that they have touched themselves. And do they even have the ability to do so? There were so many things that didn't make sense with that. And now that I'm an adult and a practitioner, so many things that still don't make sense with it because I'm like, oh, well, that would not have worked that way. But imagine how much they made off of doing that. So just be careful. Don't let anyone tell you that your religious and spiritual views and practices are not valid, and keep that faith while we continue to go through this pandemic. And hopefully things will get better soon and we will be free to move about the cabin again. All right, you guys, this last segment was brought to us by Kink Crate, where you can get all of your BDSM kink gear delivered directly to your door in a discreet, non-advertisement style box, brown box. We love brown boxes. All right, everyone. Have a great night. I will see you all next week. You've been listening to What Up Witches on BFAM 109.6.
spend you, 'cause you're mine. You better